Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Chan,
Hi, and I'm Georgina Paskogan.
and we are the co-founders of Final Bow for Yellowface. Welcome to What's the Tea, a daily conversation with dancers of Asian descent during the month of May for Asian Pacific Heritage Month to highlight the achievements and experiences of Asians in dance. Today is our very first of these chats. Happy May 1st. And we're chatting with a longtime friend, American Ballet Theater soloist Zhong-Jing Fang, who is also raising money today for American Ballet Theater's Dancer Relief Fund. CJ and I go way back. I actually wrote an article about her like maybe 10 years ago for Flat Magazine. It was a piece with her and Calvin and some beautiful black and white photos that keep popping up on social media every once in a while. So it's nice to see that. How are you doing, ZJ? What's up?
I'm doing well, staying sane.
Where are you right now?
I'm right now in Astoria, Queens.
Okay, Queens.
Yeah.
So
nice.
I just saw all of the bad news that, ABT season was canceled, the Met season. And I know that this was a lot of sort of opportunities for emerging dancers like yourself. So it's really sort of hits especially hard. So can you maybe tell us, like, what are you missing right now? Or in general, just like, what are some of your favorite works to dance that, you'd love the opportunity to be doing right now?
I know I've been missing so much the community with ABT and just like the everyday working process with rehearsing with the choreographers and the ballet masters, mistresses in my company, and just missing the pianists, hearing them playing the music and the stage, like, and the lights and the audience and the clapping. It's been really hard to not have all of that and make me feel like really appreciating how fortunate I am being living such a dream with this amazing company.
Are there any specific ballets that you're like, man, I wish I could be doing that right now, or rehearsing that, or?
Yeah, like Swan Lake. I can't even think of anything that we are supposed to doing. This year, we just actually premiered a ballet called Of Love and Rage. And it's an Asian Greek story. And just recently choreographed by Alexei Rachmansky. And we did a premiere in California, and it's quite an amazing ballet, actually. And the vision of it is just really beautiful, and that's kind of hard to miss that to be premiered in New York City this year.
When are they postponing it for? Is it for next Met season next year?
Yeah, we might be back next Met season.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for those of people who don't know who you are and what your story is, would love to hear more about your dance training. I know you're from Shanghai. Can you just give us a sort of Cliff Notes version of your personal story and how you got into dance training and, kind of what led you to become a professional dancer?
Well, it all started kind of, my father is a martial artist. So when I was 5 years old, I used to go to the park and just kind of easily train with him. And I like to move around. And then one day, my mom asked me, she literally saw on a newspaper that Shanghai Ballet School is auditioning for dancers. So she know I like to move and, just, I didn't really know what dance was at the time. So she just asked me if I want to audition. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So she took me to the Shanghai Ballet to audition. And little I knew it was 2,000 kids audition to be one of the dancers. At the time, when you get in, you get a full scholarship by the government. But only they took 18 students. So I was very lucky that I was one of those 18 students. So that's how I became.
How old were you?
I was 9.
Wow. And so what was that like, walking into this room with this foreign dance form, not knowing anything about it? What did they do with you in that audition?
Well, it was a lot of process. They at first they look at your feet, or they measure your length of legs and your arms, and they even look at your parents to see if they're like tall enough. And then they test with your musicality, or they also had math and Chinese exams to see if you're smart enough. And they did some combinations with exercises. They give you a simple exercise and you had to follow. And I really didn't know anything with the ballet terms at the time. So I remember when teacher said, can you lift your arm to 5th position? And I had no idea. And all the girls were just like showing it to me. So I just kind of like, I just went there. But yeah.
It's just so funny because in America, I feel like a lot of kids get into it. Either they have a sibling who just like, they went and they just like follow their sibling to dance class, and it just sort of, you kind of go from there, and it's very different to have a state system, like they have in China, where it's really like you have to go in and they do measure your body and they do all of that. It just seems very old school kind of way of having an academy. So, and at what point in your training did you say, I think I want to do this as a career, like I want to go for it and make this how I spend my time and make my money and make my life?
Well, you want to hear the truth?
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, from day one, basically, my first ballet teacher had a talk with all of us and said, you guys are going to be professional ballerinas, and we're not having you here to just like play around every day. We're going to be very serious trained so you can be a professional ballerina. So from then, you have the mentality that you're going to become a professional. Yeah, so I never had a chance to be like, oh, maybe tomorrow.
And so what made you decide to come and dance in America and leave China? What were your options in China to have a career?
Well, so ABT came to Shanghai in 2000. And that was pretty much the first time the company has came to China in Shanghai. And so me and my friends, we bought like a illegal ticket, and we sat all the way in the end of the row. And I remember watching Julie Ken and Angel Colella, and it was just so amazing. And still today, I still remember they were doing La Ballet. And I remember there was one Asian ballerina, her name is Chen, and she did the one of the trio variations. And I just like, wow, like she's in a ballet. Like she's, apparently I know who she is. She's from China. She's from my ballet school. So I just was so like amazed by her grace. And I just really like, that would be my dream to dance with ABT. So when I was graduating, I sent my resumes to ABT, and John Meehan, the studio company director, wrote me back and said, we have one position for the studio company, would you like to join? And we will help you to get the visa and everything. So I had to convince my parents at the time to say, yes, like I can go to America.
Tell me more about your parents, and how did they feel about you really having a professional career? Did they realize at the time when you went off to school that this was it, or did they think you would be closer to home?
They thought I was going to be close to home. They thought I will be at least in Shanghai, because we do have a ballet company in Shanghai. So I guess, I was born in the 80s. So at that time, to have a job, to have being a professional dancer, that's a very like honorary thing to have. So they're pretty already happy with me that she's gonna have a job. she's gonna be a ballerina. So they're already really happy for me. But I think it's the international ballet competitions I did at that time that kind of helped them to be open-minded, that it will be amazing growth for me as a ballerina to dance with one of the best companies. So they did understand that. And with that, they helped me. They supported me all the way. Yeah, but it was
Now,
hard. It was a hard decision.
now tell me about your experience seeing Chen. Obviously seeing Julie and Angel was so, they're just amazing stars. But what was it like seeing somebody who looked like you dancing at ABT? What did that mean for you?
It just made the whole world. It was so incredible. It was so amazing to see. That I felt relatable. That's something I think every ballerina I know who wanted to look up to someone who's look like them and they can relate to. So at the time when I saw her, I just like, wow, if she can do it, maybe I can too. I would say the hope to see her dancing out there gave me such a hope to have, not knowing anything at such a young age, but just know that I can make it because I saw her.
Or that there's a place there for you. If you were good enough and you wanted it, that was a place that you could go and have a good career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about the difference. You were obviously trained in Shanghai and you came to America. What was the difference between the training and the schedule and the cross training? What the environment? How are the two culturally different, even though it's both ballet community?
Well, for me, I didn't have that much problem because I love dance. And ABT is one of the hardest working ballet companies in the world. And I just loved it. I loved being in the studio. I loved practicing and learning different moves, different ballet. And I remember the first few years I would stay in every single ballet. Even if I'm not on, I will be watching from the wing just to watch everything, just to kind of observe everything I can. And that was quite fascinating for me. Of course, at the time, we had so many stars as well. So that was really an incredible time when I joined it. Just really felt like a dream come true. I think for 2 years, I couldn't believe that I was actually in America and with ABT at that time.
Yeah. And so when you were training in China, you obviously trained in classical Chinese dance as well as part of your, not just classical ballet, but I'm sure also character dance. And to what degree have you brought that your cultural heritage and that dance background into your own work? I know you've done some choreography as well. To what degree do you think your cultural heritage informs your work as an artist, both as a dancer and as a choreographer?
That's a really good question. I love some of the amazing Chinese classical dance, and it's not even there's two different dances moves. One is the folk dance, and the other is the classical Chinese dance, and they move very beautifully, and it's very technical. And I remember in the ballet school we also have the Chinese dancers just focus on the Chinese dance, and just really wonderful to watch them. And part of that, I remember when I did one of the competitions, we had one choreographer who is a Chinese dancer, and she studied contemporary and also became choreographer. And the way she gave us the movements, and it was just so interesting how it flowed so well. And it almost reminds me, I always love watching the one that with the long sleeve. And it kind of like, even
The
though
water sleeves.
the water sleeves,
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite movements. And it's just so nice, even sometimes we don't use that. And that really kind of gave me some recovery in my own choreographing, because even if you don't use it, but it's the movement that they do, you know, it's really flowed.
Yep. Now your ABT is obviously a classical repertory company, so you know, performs a lot of the big warhorse Russian classics, and so you've danced a lot of them. You know, how do you think in general, though, overall, both having danced these ballets, but also having seen a lot of different other companies, how do you think the ballet community is doing in terms of how we represent race and people who are not European on stages?
Honestly, like I really wasn't that aware until when we started to have our conversations, and you really helped me to bring awareness. In terms of the dancers, I think like I would just be in the jury for Peter Lausanne international competition in February, and I was very impressed to see how many Asian dancers today are competing, and they're so well trained. And we might didn't have that like 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, it was quite aware to have students like me competing internationally. And I remember seeing people's face expressions like, wow, they're from China and they're pretty good. You know, but now today, like people are very getting used to knowing how many wonderful, amazing Asian artists are upcoming. With that side, I think, you know, the ballet world is improving. In terms of ballets, I think that there are pros and cons. You know, such as certain ballets we already know, such as Le Corsaire or Nutcracker. There's certain things that's not complete, right? Or at the time it was okay, but today when we look at those ballets, it might be not appropriate to perform. So it's kind of, you know, it's kind of slow how ballet companies are still performing these type of ballets. At the same time, it is an amazing ballet such as Nutcracker. So it's little, sometimes it can be frustrating if you see something that's not appropriate.
And so what do you, you know, what do you do in that situation? You know, and do you say something? Do you find a way to work on it a different way as an artist to do it yourself? I mean, say you're dancing, you know, an odalisque and you're like a slave girl, like a happy dancing slave girl, which most slave girls would tell you they weren't so happy. But like, how do you, you know, but you have to put that aside and just focus on the amazing technical choreography, that classical precision choreography that you've been presented. So how do you, you know, figure that out in your own process?
Well, to be honest, like I, for knowing that La Corsaire wasn't right, it's kind of, for me, it's kind of embarrassing because it's kind of late. Because I remember when I watched La Corsaire with the ABT original video, I used to love that video and just like
Oh my
love
God, me
every
too. I loved it. I loved it
I
too.
have
I
that
loved it.
video.
I really didn't care about the story. And when I joined the company and to be one of the odalisques, that's like my dream. I didn't care. I just want to be one of the odalisques. And then I remember while being a slave, and I was trying to be sad at first. And I remember, you're not supposed to be sad. You're supposed to be happy because you're about to get purchased by this rich man, and your life is gonna be better. And then I remember feeling a little bit, you know, like, oh, why I'm happy. I just felt a little confused. But like the older I get, the more I felt maybe like, this is strange. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it might also be harder to speak up when you're a younger dancer, especially if you're in the core or, kind of newer in the company where you might not have as much of a voice, so you don't want to seem difficult or seem like, you know, to stick out. It's just maybe just easier to just do the steps and work on doing the steps really well and kind of keep your mouth shut sometimes. It's a power dynamic, even though you're an artist yourself. It's sometimes hard to have those conversations in the moment in the studio. I guess sort of in that experience, have you thought about your own encounters with Asian representation? You mentioned Nutcracker and Ballet, but any others you want to share with us about how you've kind of evolved on your thinking even?
Well, I feel one of the biggest issue is the Nutcracker, which I actually never really felt comfortable with our production. But when I started reading your book and I did a lot of research with watching different productions, and I'm like getting mad and madder. Some of the productions are really trying to mock with the face or the costumes and the fingers, and I slowly like realizing, I didn't understand fingers from the beginning, but slowly I'm realizing like, wait a minute, I'm from China and I know better than all of the people who are performing that we don't have that kind of dance. That's not like a vocabulary definition in Chinese dance, right? So why we kept doing that? And then I still remember talking to people who have never ever been to China and saying that, oh, that's the image they think, if you like bobbing your heads, that's like very Chinese. And I'm like, that's not true. We don't do that. We might have like dolls, we have those bobbing heads,
Bobbleheads.
but that's not like human, that's like just for fun.
Right. So what, because a lot of our work with Final Bow for Yellowface is focused on solutions. So as a person from Chinese heritage, what are some things that you could imagine that would be better representation? So say Nutcracker, for example, we all know the familiar music. What are some other things that you could imagine that variation would be? So if I came to you as a choreographer and I said, okay, you're going to choreograph a Chinese variation, what would you imagine it to be?
That's a really good question. I really have to think deep about it. I may well create the water sleeves in a piece and make it very graceful. It could be fun too, because the music has that kind of fun tone. I actually, I sent you the link for Bejar, and you said you guys have shared that. And that so far has been my favorite one, and I think that's quite cool to
for
see.
Our viewers, can you describe what we're looking at?
Yeah, in the dance, number one, they're showing the revolution time, with the blue costume,
the Mao suits,
the chairman Mao suits, and then bicycle, which is very like iconic. We still have most bikes in China, and that's quite clear that was that time, the chairman Mao's time. It doesn't represent today, it doesn't represent before, but it's a very clear idea. It's not marking for, oh, maybe that's Chinese. It's very clear, and it's not making fun of, right? And it's very well done. It's very classy, in a way that actually give people knowledge. It actually makes more interesting and makes people more want to like research why they're wearing the shirt like that. It has a deeper meaning to it rather than just making fun.
So we talk a lot about in dance, how do we diversify our audience? And so what are some ideas that you have about just in general, big picture? How do we build like a larger, more loyal, younger, more inclusive audience for classical ballet and some of these old works that are, 150, 200 years old? How do we build that new audience for this next generation?
I think doesn't matter which generation, but I think people love being, people like inclusivity, and they like to be relatable, right? So, for example, with myself, when I watch Young Chen, and I felt relatable. I felt like so much closer to watch a ballet company, amazing ballet company, than just randomly go to see a show that's amazing but has nothing I can relate to. So I think to build a royal, younger, and more inclusive audience, we have to have awareness how we have the diversity to connect with the audience rather than just being diversity is very important, but also how we share our story.
Yeah.
I think the story itself can connect with the audience more.
And I think if you look at Misty, for example, I think is a great example of that and how she's able to bring in an audience that might be different than the nights that Stella is dancing or the nights that Isabella are dancing. And that a whole new like portion of our community is now able to see themselves reflected on stage. And I think that is really powerful. We talk a lot about all of these other barriers that are maybe more measurable, like, oh, we need to economics or things like that. But the sort of idea that you see somebody and can connect and relate in that sort of spiritual way, I think is also very powerful that we don't talk about enough. And it's more than just seeing somebody who looks like you on the brochure. It's really going and being able to see yourself as not just the supporting player, but as the protagonist, as the hero, as the tragic person, as the person who's going through a journey. So it becomes your journey. And I think maybe if you're a person of color, you're very used to doing that and projecting that onto, white heroes. If you say like a romantic comedy, it's very easy to put yourself in that position. But to have somebody who already looks like you, it just it feels maybe different.
I agree.
Yeah, I wanted to close us off with a series of kind of rapid fire questions for you, just for fun.
Okay.
So like quarantine Chinese, and so basically like give me like a quick 1 or 2 word answer. Okay. Okay. Quarantine go-to recipe.
I've been doing this cold tofu dish with 1,000 years egg. It's
I'm into that. Favorite classical ballet variation?
Well, so far I would say Shades, because I just mentioned the Shades version with the 16 arabesques.
Oof. That's like let's go to Chinatown and get a foot massage after that one.
Just one foot.
Yeah, just the 1 foot. You only half price. It's fine. What is a choreographer? Who's a choreographer that you would like to work with who you haven't had the chance to?
Jessica Leon. I haven't worked with her. And I've been doing a lot of workshops with her, but I haven't had a chance working actually with her.
What's your dream role?
The Swan Queen.
Okay. What is the first outfit you're going to wear when we have a fabulous party post-coronavirus?
Goodness. Well, I'm trying to wear this Chinese dress, and it's a bit tighter than usually it is. So I'll say something close to my culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you traveling next after the coronavirus? When you can go anywhere in the world, where are you going?
China. To visit my family.
Good answer. All right, well, thank you again for tuning in. If one last thing, if you could tell us a little bit about what you're raising money for. So if anybody who's tuning in wants to support ABT and support you, how can they do that?
They can go to ABT's website and go to their website and you will find how to do it. And also check out our Met Gala, which we don't have. So we have a virtual gala on the May 12th. That's gonna be on YouTube. And it's also will be posting on our website as well.
Very cool.
ABT.
Tell us more about what that format is, because all of this is new to us as well. So what does a virtual gala look like?
Well, apparently they will have as many dancers as they can saying something to our audience and our fans. And then we will have celebrities giving speeches about our company. And also we will have videos from our previous rehearsals and performances. Yeah, and also probably some of the vintage videos they will do as well.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I'll have to find my my black tie sweatpants. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Thank you again, ZJ. And make sure to check out our Instagram page right now for the reveal of who is tomorrow's dancer. And hopefully you'll join us tomorrow at noon when we post the next interview. We'll be doing one a day, every single day for the month of May for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Anything else to add, Gina?
No, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, ZJ. You're just hearing you speak has just been so inspiring for me even too. So it's such a pleasure.
And you've been such an amazing inspiration as well. So thank you for being here with me, and it's so wonderful to see you too. It's just so nice to see you too. It's been a while.
Well, got to keep the community strong.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, ZJ.
Thank you.